Hi, my name is Brad Hill, and it's good to be with you guys again. And today we're going to look at the last part of James chapter 4. And this section really kind of deals with pride and insecurity. And we touched on pride a little bit the last time when we looked at James 4, the first half there. But instead of looking at it from the way it affects our prayer life, we're going to look at the way that it affects our daily lives and that relationship that we have with Jesus throughout our daily lives, right? And if we remember in James 4:6, James says, "Therefore it says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble." So let's keep that in mind as we continue to read this last half of James 4. We're going to start in verses 13 and 14. It says, "Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there, and trade and make a profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes." Right here we see that by making plans apart from God, which we are all guilty of doing from time to time, we are taking our security and placing that in our own hands or in the hands of those that we are making plans with. And the best way that I could explain this would be your car. So imagine that you need to go somewhere, and you are placing your faith in that car to get you to where you need to go. Your security relies on that car to get you from point A to point B. And that's a no-brainer to us because that's part of our daily lives. But imagine if we were so prideful and arrogant to think that we could design a car and manufacture a car better than the people who manufactured the car that you currently have. And you were like, nope, no thank you, I'm not going to drive that car. I'm going to build one myself, and it's going to be better than that. And I'm going to get in that car, and it's going to get me from point A to point B. That's a lot of faith that you're putting in your own hands to get that job done. Not to mention, that's a lot of wasted time trying to figure out a plan and a design to make a car to do the thing that the manufacturer has already done for you. And so when we make plans apart from God to do whatever, we are just like the person who is trying to manufacture their own car rather than place their faith in a car that is already working and working well and at peak performance. The best way that we can place our security in God is to simply humble ourselves and ask what His will and purpose for us is. So if we continue to read verses 15 and 16, James really lays that out. It says, "Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil." You know, verse 15 gets misquoted a lot. People tend to say things like, God willing, I'm going to go and do such and such. Well, and that's actually the opposite of humility. When we do that, that is actually very prideful because we're just inviting God to be a part of our plan. And so that's where it can get backwards, is if you just simply read it as, well, if the Lord wills, I can go and do this, this, and this. Well, it's not actually what James is saying. It's the opposite, really. It's asking God, what is your will for me to go and do? And then let God fill in the blank instead of you say, God willing, I'm going to do this. God's not going to come in and stop our free will. We have free will. So we can say, God willing, all we want to, that we're going to do a such and such thing. But at the end of the day, we're going to go do such and such thing because we have free will. And God's not just going to come in and be like, nope, not going to let you do that. If we want to do it, He's going to let us do it because we have free will. And so it is our job to go and see what God's will is so that we can exercise our free will to do God's will. Now let's see how James caps this whole thing off in verse 17. It says, "So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin." Now that goes back to what I was just saying about exercising our free will to be about God's will and not our own will. And so if we know God's will and we've spent time and we've asked God what we should be about, and then we don't go and be about that thing that he has clearly let us know we should be about, that is sin. And we're all guilty of it. Trust me, we live in such a fast-paced world that sometimes we just go and do things without even thinking about it. And we get stuck in these loops of life to where we're just going, and we fail to ask God if that's his will, or if there's something going so fast in our lives and we miss something God has for us in that motion of fast-paced living. So I would encourage you guys to make it a point when you wake up in the morning to just start the conversation with God in prayer of what would you have me be about today? What is your will for me today look like? And then as you're living throughout the day, just constantly be in prayer. God, what would you have me do today? What would you have me do in this situation? As situations arise, as new relationships come into your life, how would you have me handle those things? That is a discipline that I am currently working on in my life, because I know that I am very, very guilty of just going and doing things and just getting tasks done and missing some things that God has for me. So I would encourage you guys to join that journey with me, and we can improve our spiritual lives together as we're asking God what our will is for our daily lives. Discuss with the group, and I will see you guys in the next video.